Ever tried growing grapes from seed, only to end up with a vine that produces tiny, sour fruit that tastes nothing like what you were hoping for? You are not alone. It is one of the most common mistakes backyard gardeners make, and it can set you back years. In this video, I am going to walk you through everything you need to know about growing delicious grapes in your own garden. From picking the right variety for your climate, to harvesting clusters of sweet, juicy fruit. Plus, stick around to the end, where I will share a simple trick for making your own grape juice that tastes better than anything you will find at the store. Let us get started. Grapes are one of the most rewarding fruits you can grow in your backyard. They are beautiful on the vine, incredibly productive once established, and there is nothing quite like picking a fresh cluster and eating it right there in the garden. The good news is that growing grapes is actually much easier than most people think. Once you understand a few key concepts and choose the right variety for your area, you will be harvesting baskets of grapes for years to come. So let us start by understanding why growing from seed is a mistake and what you should do instead. Now, although you can technically grow a grapevine from seed, I strongly recommend against it. Here is why. Grapes grown from seed rarely taste like their parent plant. You might plant a seed from the most delicious Concord grape you have ever eaten, wait 3 to 5 years for it to mature, and end up with something completely different, often much worse. Grape genetics are complicated, and seeds do not breed true. On top of that, seed-grown vines can take significantly longer to produce fruit, sometimes up to 7 years or more. When you buy a grapevine from a nursery, you are getting a plant that has been propagated from cuttings or grafted onto proven rootstock. This means you know exactly what variety you are getting, and the vine is already mature enough to start producing fruit within 1 to 2 years of planting. Most nursery grapevines are sold as bare root plants in late winter or early spring, or as potted plants throughout the growing season. I personally prefer bare root plants because they tend to establish faster and cost less. Look for vines that are 1 to 2 years old with a healthy root system and at least 2 or 3 strong canes. If you are buying potted plants, make sure the roots are not circling around the pot, which can cause problems later on. Now, one thing I want to mention is rootstock. Some grapevines, especially in areas with soil pests like fuoxera, are grafted onto resistant rootstocks. If you are in an area where fuoxera is a problem, make sure you buy grafted vines. Your local extension office can tell you if this is something you need to worry about in your region. Now let us talk about choosing the right grape variety for your garden, because this is honestly the most important decision you will make. The wrong variety in the wrong climate will give you nothing but frustration, while the right variety will reward you with abundant harvests year after year. There are 3 main types of grapes you will encounter: American grapes, European grapes, and hybrid grapes. American grapes, like Concord and Niagara, are the most cold-hardy and disease-resistant. They thrive in USDA zones 4 through 8 and can handle humid summers that would destroy European varieties. These are your classic grape jelly and grape juice grapes, with that bold, musky flavor. If you live in the Northeast, Midwest, or anywhere with cold winters and humid summers, American varieties are your safest bet. European grapes, also called Vitis vinifera, include varieties like Thompson Seedless, Flame Seedless, and all the classic wine grapes like Cabernet and Chardonnay. These need a Mediterranean climate to really thrive, zones 7 through 10, with dry summers and mild winters. If you are in California, the Pacific Northwest, or parts of the Southwest, these varieties will do beautifully. They have thinner skins and a more refined flavor, but they are much more susceptible to fungal diseases in humid climates. Hybrid grapes are crosses between American and European varieties, bred to combine the best traits of both. Varieties like Mars, Reliance, and Marquis are excellent choices for gardeners who want seedless table grapes with good disease resistance. These are my personal favorites for most backyard gardeners because they offer a nice balance of flavor, hardiness, and ease of care. Now let me give you some specific recommendations based on climate. If you are in zones 4 through 6 with cold winters, go with Concord for juice and jelly, Niagara for a sweet white grape, or Mars and Reliance for seedless table grapes. All of these can handle temperatures down to -15 to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are in zones 7 through 8, you have more options. You can grow the cold-hardy varieties I just mentioned, plus hybrids like Marquis, Jupiter, and Neptune. Some European varieties will also work if your summers are not too humid. If you are in zones 9 through 10, with mild winters and dry summers, European varieties like Thompson Seedless and Flame Seedless will thrive. Just keep in mind that grapes need some winter chill to produce well, usually around 500 to 1,000 chill hours below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, so the warmest parts of Zone 10 might struggle. The variety I have had the most success with in my own garden is Concord. It is virtually indestructible, produces heavily every single year, and makes the best grape juice and jelly you have ever tasted. For fresh eating, I grow Mars, which is a seedless blue grape with that classic grape flavor and no seeds to deal with. Once you have selected your variety, it is time to plant. The best time to plant grapevines is in early spring, after the last hard frost but while the vine is still dormant. In most areas, this means March or April. You can also plant in fall, about 6 weeks before your first expected frost. But spring planting gives the roots more time to establish before summer heat arrives. Choose a location with full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight per day. Grapes need all the sun they can get to produce sweet fruit. A south-facing slope is ideal because it provides maximum sun exposure and good air drainage, which helps prevent fungal diseases. Avoid low-lying areas where cold air settles and frost pockets form. Soil should be well-draining. Grapes can tolerate a wide range of soil types from sandy to clay, but they absolutely cannot sit in waterlogged soil. If your soil is heavy clay, consider planting on a raised mound or adding plenty of organic matter to improve drainage. The ideal soil pH is between 5.5 and 6.5, slightly acidic to neutral. Dig a hole about 12 inches deep and 12 inches wide. If you are planting a bare root vine, soak the roots in water for 2 to 3 hours before planting. Trim any broken or damaged roots with clean pruners. Make a small mound of soil in the bottom of the hole and spread the roots over it. The graft union, if there is one, should be about 2 inches above the soil line. Fill in around the roots with soil, firming gently as you go to eliminate air pockets. Water deeply to settle the soil. Space your vines about 6 to 8 feet apart if you are growing them on a trellis or fence. If you are growing them on an arbor, you can plant a single vine at the base and let it cover the entire structure over time. I plant mine at 8 feet apart, which gives me plenty of room to work between the vines and ensures good air circulation. Now that your vine is in the ground, let us talk about training and support, because grapes absolutely need something to grow on. Unlike tomatoes or peppers, which can more or less support themselves, grapevines are vigorous climbers that will become a tangled mess without proper training. There are several trellis systems you can use, but for backyard gardeners, I recommend either a simple 2-wire trellis or a sturdy arbor. The 2-wire trellis is the easiest to build and maintain. Set posts about 8 feet apart, with end posts braced or anchored firmly. The posts should be about 6 feet tall above ground. Run 2 wires between the posts, one at about 3 feet high and one at about 5.5 feet high. You will train your grapevine up to these wires and along them. For the first year, your main goal is to establish a strong root system and grow 1 or 2 main canes. Do not worry about fruit production yet. In fact, if your vine tries to produce fruit in the first year, pinch off the flower clusters. I know it is hard to do, but you want all that energy going into root and vine development. Select the strongest cane and tie it loosely to a stake or your trellis wire. Remove any other shoots that sprout from the base. By the end of the first growing season, this cane should reach your first wire. In the second year, you will train the main cane along the wire, creating what is called the cordon. Let side shoots develop along this cordon, as these will eventually produce your fruiting canes. In the third year and beyond, you will have an established framework that produces fruit reliably. Watering and fertilizing are straightforward once you understand what grapes need. During the first growing season, water your new vine deeply once or twice a week, depending on rainfall and soil type. The goal is to keep the soil consistently moist, but never soggy. Once the vine is established, usually by the second or third year, grapes are surprisingly drought-tolerant. In fact, some stress from dry conditions can actually improve fruit quality by concentrating the sugars. I water my established vines deeply about once a week during dry spells, and I back off watering entirely in late summer as the fruit ripens. This helps prevent the grapes from splitting and encourages higher sugar content. One mistake I see a lot of gardeners make is overwatering, especially in heavy soil. Grape roots sitting in wet soil will rot, and the vine will decline quickly. If you are not sure whether to water, stick your finger about 3 inches into the soil. If it feels dry at that depth, go ahead and water. If it still feels moist, wait another day or two. For fertilizing, grapes are not heavy feeders, but they do appreciate some nutrition, especially in the first few years while they are getting established. In early spring, just as the buds begin to swell, I apply a balanced fertilizer, something like a 10-10-10, at a rate of about 1 pound per vine. Scatter it in a circle around the base of the vine, starting about 6 inches from the trunk and extending out to the drip line. Water it in well. You can also side dress with compost in spring, which adds organic matter and slow-release nutrients. Avoid fertilizing after midsummer, because you do not want to encourage new growth that will not have time to harden off before winter. Too much nitrogen will also give you lots of leafy growth at the expense of fruit, so resist the urge to overfeed. I have found that once my vines are mature, they really do not need much fertilizer at all. The compost I add in spring and the natural leaf litter that breaks down around the base seems to be plenty. By the way, if you are finding this helpful so far, take a second to subscribe so you do not miss more videos like this one. All right, let us keep going. Now we need to talk about pruning, because this is where a lot of gardeners get nervous. But I promise you, once you understand the basic principle, it is actually pretty simple, and it makes a huge difference in how much fruit you harvest. Here is the key thing to understand. Grapes produce fruit on 1-year-old wood. That means the canes that grew last summer are the ones that will produce fruit this year. Old wood, meaning canes that are 2 years old or older, will not produce fruit. So every year you need to remove old wood and encourage new growth that will fruit the following season. The best time to prune is in late winter, while the vine is still dormant, but the coldest weather has passed. In most areas, this means February or March. Pruning too early can make the vine vulnerable to cold damage, and pruning too late can cause the vine to bleed sap excessively, which weakens it. When you approach your vine in late winter, you will see a tangle of canes. Your job is to select the best ones and remove everything else. For a mature vine trained on a 2-wire trellis, you want to keep about 4 to 6 of the healthiest 1-year-old canes, each with about 10 to 15 buds. 1-year-old canes are smooth and tan or reddish-brown in color. 2-year-old wood is darker and has a rougher, more shaggy bark. Remove all 2-year-old and older wood, cutting it back to the main trunk or cordon. Here is my simple rule of thumb. If you are not sure whether to cut it, grapes are incredibly vigorous and will grow back quickly. It is almost impossible to over-prune a grapevine, but under-pruning will leave you with a dense, tangled mess that produces small, poor-quality fruit. I aim to remove about 80 to 90% of last year's growth every winter. I know that sounds drastic, but trust me, the vine will thank you for it. After pruning, you should be left with a relatively open structure that allows good air circulation and sunlight penetration. This is one of the best ways to prevent fungal diseases. Let us talk about some common problems you might run into and how to solve them, because even the healthiest grapevines can face challenges from time to time. First, powdery mildew. This is probably the most common fungal disease affecting grapes, especially in areas with warm days and cool nights. You will see a white, powdery coating on the leaves and sometimes on the fruit. The good news is that powdery mildew is mostly cosmetic on established vines, but severe infections can reduce fruit quality. To prevent it, make sure your vines have good air circulation by pruning properly and not planting too close together. If you see powdery mildew starting to develop, you can spray with a sulfur-based fungicide or a mixture of 1 tablespoon of baking soda in a gallon of water with a few drops of dish soap. Apply every 7 to 10 days during humid weather. Second, black rot. This fungal disease causes brown spots on leaves and shriveled, mummified fruit. It is most common in humid climates east of the Rockies. Prevention is the best strategy here. Remove all mummified fruit from the vine and the ground in fall and winter, as these harbor the fungal spores. Prune for good air circulation and apply a copper-based fungicide in early spring before symptoms appear. If you have had black rot in the past, you may need to spray every 2 weeks from bud break until the fruit starts to ripen. Third, Japanese beetles. These metallic green and bronze beetles can strip a grapevine of its leaves in a matter of days. They are most active in June and July. Hand-picking is effective for small infestations. Just knock them into a bucket of soapy water in the early morning when they are sluggish. For larger infestations, neem oil or spinosad can help. Avoid using Japanese beetle traps near your garden, as they actually attract more beetles to the area. Fourth, birds. Once your grapes start to ripen, every bird in the neighborhood will want to share. The only reliable solution is netting. Drape bird netting over your entire vine or trellis about 2 weeks before harvest, when the grapes start to show color. Make sure the netting is secured tightly at the bottom so birds cannot sneak underneath. Fifth, grapeberry moth. If you find small worms inside your grapes or notice webbing on the clusters, you probably have grapeberry moth. The larvae tunnel into the fruit and cause it to rot. Remove and destroy any infested clusters. In severe cases, spinosad applied at bloom time and again 2 weeks later can help reduce populations. Sixth, poor fruit set. If your vine flowers but does not produce much fruit, there are a few possible causes. Late frosts can kill flower buds, so make sure you are growing a variety suited to your zone. Over-fertilizing with nitrogen produces lots of leaves but few flowers. And some grape varieties need a pollinator, so check whether your variety is self-fertile or needs a companion vine. The good news is, if you follow the steps we have covered, choosing the right variety, planting properly, pruning correctly, and maintaining good air circulation, you should be able to avoid most of these problems entirely. Now for the moment we have all been waiting for, harvesting your grapes. This is where all your patience and hard work pays off. Most grape varieties are ready to harvest in late summer to early fall, typically August through October, depending on your climate and variety. The exact timing depends on several factors, including your specific variety and how much sugar you want in the fruit. Here is how to know when your grapes are ready. First, look at the color. The grapes should be fully colored according to their variety. Green grapes will turn a yellowish or amber green when ripe. Red and blue grapes will deepen to their full color. Second, taste them. This is the most reliable method. Pick a grape from different parts of the cluster and eat it. Ripe grapes should taste sweet with no sour or tart aftertaste. The seeds, if present, should be brown, not green. Third, check the stems. When grapes are ripe, the stems of the cluster will start to turn from green to brown and become slightly woody. When you are ready to harvest, use sharp pruners or scissors to cut the entire cluster from the vine, leaving a small piece of stem attached. Handle the clusters gently to avoid bruising the fruit. Grapes do not continue to ripen after picking, so make sure they are fully ripe before you harvest. I like to harvest in the morning after the dew has dried, but before the heat of the day sets in. This keeps the grapes cool and firm. One thing I have learned over the years is to be patient. It is tempting to start picking as soon as the grapes show color, but if you wait another week or two, the sugar content increases dramatically. The difference between grapes harvested a little early and grapes harvested at peak ripeness is night and day. Now for that bonus tip I promised you at the beginning. If you end up with more grapes than you can eat fresh, which you definitely will once your vines are mature, let me show you how to make the simplest and most delicious homemade grape juice you have ever tasted. No fancy equipment needed. Start by washing your grapes and removing them from the stems. You do not need to be too precise about this. A few stems left in will not hurt anything. Place the grapes in a large pot and add just enough water to cover the bottom of the pot, about ½ an inch. This prevents scorching. Heat the grapes over medium heat, stirring occasionally until they start to break down and release their juice. This usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes. You will see the skin split and the juice start to pool. Use a potato masher or the back of a large spoon to crush the grapes and release more juice. Once the grapes are fully broken down, strain the mixture through a fine mesh strainer lined with cheesecloth or a clean kitchen towel. Let gravity do the work. Do not squeeze the pulp or your juice will be cloudy. Let the juice drip through for at least an hour. What you end up with is pure, fresh grape juice with no added sugar, no preservatives, nothing artificial. It tastes completely different from store-bought juice. The flavor is bright and intense, and you can really taste the grape variety you used. Concord grapes make the richest, most flavorful juice, but any variety works. You can drink it fresh, refrigerate it for up to a week, or freeze it in ice cube trays for longer storage. I make at least a few gallons every fall, and it is one of the highlights of the harvest season. My grandkids think it is better than any juice box, and honestly, I agree with them. So that is everything you need to know about growing delicious grapes in your own garden. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you do not miss future videos. And if you have any questions, or if you are already growing grapes and want to share your favorite variety, drop a comment below. I love hearing from you. Thanks for watching and happy gardening.